Maji huteremka bondeni, hayapandi mlima, na maji hayo yakiteremka hufuata mkondo. Lakini maji hayo yakimwagika hayazoleki, na ndiyo maana ukiyavulia nguo maji hayo yaoge. Basi mtazamo wako ndo maisha yako.
Ili kupata sikiza tune hiyo ya falsafa ya maji, bonyeza *811 *965 hash, *811 *965 hash.
It is the 12th day of January 2022. Good morning and welcome to the first edition of this new year. Happy New Year. We have got very good resolutions for the show this year to make it even more better and more personal so that we can reach you wherever you are. My name is Ben Troy Njue. Thank you so much for making time. And in the next 2 hours, we'll be discussing a lot of issues that are affecting the country. But first things first, the first hour we will discuss matters security. And the second hour, we will look at the politics of the day and the week and the month. As it is January, of course, the political drumbeats are slowly but surely gaining pace. But before we do that, let's head over to the Serena Hotel for a quick one, a joint statement by the women of Kenya under the banner Africa Women Leader Network on Peaceful Kenya. And currently addressing the congregation is Jennifer Ria, who is the chairperson. Let's first of all listen.
Must play their role as best as they can. That is why we are calling on all public and private institutions as well as citizens to play their role. This is the only country we have, people. This is the only country we have. History will judge us harshly if we destroy the only heritage that we have, that is our Kenya. On our part as mothers and leaders, all those mothers and leaders and the mothers to be and Aluin, we commit to play our role to nurture and protect peace and stability across the country. We urge our women politicians to avoid being sucked into the violence and instead join hands with all other mothers and women to maintain peace. In addition, Aluin Kenya has put together a team of eminent women to act as mediators and peace champions. Women must mediate peace in this country. They are the mothers of this country. Their children depend on them. The society depends on them. So we must mediate peace. We shall train and deploy these mediators in all 47 counties so that they can support national peace initiatives. We shall remain vigilant and hawk-eyed to ensure that Kenya goes through this election period peacefully and displaying equity. Additionally, we shall also reach out to our sisters in other chapters of Aluin, that is throughout the continent, to ensure that we pursue a common goal of peace for all under our rallying call, #Aman Kenya. This is the least we can do in our lifetime. God bless the mothers of this country. God bless Aluin. God bless Kenya. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daktari. Members of the press, you notice that this took a slightly different angle. And so what I want us to do so that all of us can be part of this voice is to go back to the, as we do the Q&A from the press, we will not do it from this room.
That has been Jennifer Riria, who is the chairperson of the African Women Leaders Network, and they're having a presser at the Serena Hotel talking about peaceful elections. And they have said some of the things that she has touched on. She said they are the mothers and leaders, so they are going to come out in their large numbers to ensure that Kenya has peaceful elections. And also they're talking about a hashtag Amani Kenya, which they are going to be using so as to further their agenda. And they will be traversing 47 counties to ensure that they preach peace so that we may have peaceful elections this year and a peaceful transition as well. Our reporter Zainab is keeping a keen eye on that report, and definitely we will bring a much detailed coverage of that event much later in our subsequent bulletin. But in case you just joined us, this is KBC News Check. Thank you so much for making time. And as I had alluded to earlier, is that we are splitting these 2 hours. First, we're talking about matters security and terrorism. Then the second hour, we're going to be discussing matters politics, and this will fall squarely on peaceful elections in that second hour. Well, in the next 3 days, the country is going to be commemorating exactly 3 years since the Dusit D2 terror attack along Riverside Drive that left over 20 people dead. And Al-Shabaab militias did come out and talk about that they were responsible for that terror attack. What are some of the lessons that we have picked from there? And with all fairness, we have enjoyed relative calm, and especially in the capital city. Yes, of course, we have some of the issues on our borders, and especially because of Somalia and the Al-Shabaab militias, but at least we have enjoyed relative calm. What are some of the things that we are doing right? What are some of the things that we need to do? You do remember the head of state, President Uhuru Kenyatta, did say that security starts with you. And my guest on this hour, he is a senior superintendent of police and also the principal liaison officer at the National Counter-Terrorism Center, Kilu Masisi. Have I got to that?
Yes.
Karibu sana.
Thank
thanks
you so much
for making time and being my first guest.
Thank you for having me here.
Yes.
Happy New Year, viewers. Good morning. So,
yes, you are a senior superintendent of police, and also you also wear another hat when it comes to matters counterterrorism. Kindly tell us a brief of what you do.
I work for the National Counterterrorism Center. The National Counterterrorism Center is a multi-agency instrument that is comprised majorly of security agencies from government, MDAs. So at the National Counterterrorism Center, you will find we have the police, we have members from the intelligence, we have the KDF, we have immigration, we have Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we have Ngao, so we have the prison department, we have the KWS. So it's a conglomerate of government agencies who deal with security. And the purpose of having that is to have coordinated efforts among the security agencies. So as a police officer, I'm seconded there, and I'm the principal liaison officer. And the NCTC, as those who will not know what NCTC does, NCTC coordinates counterterrorism efforts across Kenya. NCTC sensitizes and creates awareness across Kenya. NCTC also capacity builds enforcement agencies on matters of counterterrorism. and also NCTC in liaison with other agencies. They do certification for aviation schools. As we know, the plane has been used as a terrorist weapon.
Yes.
So it is good that we vet these schools so that you can know their intention, who comes there, who are the pilots, who are the students in those schools, so that we can have a secure, safer space for the aviation.
Okay.
Yes.
And 3 years down the line, what lessons have we picked up from the Dusit D2 attack? I remember government agencies were on the receiving end because it was alleged that the US had issued some sort of a warning that the Al-Shabaab militias were planning an attack on somewhere that is frequented by tourists and people from other countries.
Yes.
What lessons have we been able to pick up since the Dusit D2? Of course, a very unfortunate event, but we may have picked 2 or 3 things that we can use to ensure that that does not happen again.
Yes, we have lessons learned. The attack was very unfortunate, although we know our security agencies are very resilient in matters countering terrorism. So in the last 3 years, maybe we can go up to what happened in Westgate, issues of coordination.
Yes.
And we see there's an improvement of coordination
True.
in the enforcement agencies. We see there's an improvement of awareness, because in this awareness we also tell the larger society what to do in case of a terrorist attack. And you see in Dusit, you could see what the civilians did, and then you could see also what the enforcement agencies did. You could see the first responders, how they reacted, and those who came in after the first responders, how they acted. So we have learned that it is good that we bring the larger society, and we are calling it a whole of government, a whole of society approach, so that we face issues of security wholesomely as the whole of Kenya. Yes.
And you know, matter security are kind of a lot of secrets involved, so that we know, of course, you can be able to prepare well. But what are some of the efforts that have been done since the Dusit D2 attack that guarantees us, or me as a Kenyan, that I'm safe within the borders against any terrorist attacks?
Yeah, of course, you'll find that there is no secret. You just say that there are warnings or advisories given by our friendly countries on their citizens who are in Kenya. So number one, that is not a secret. So when they give these early warnings, we always analyze what is the threat level, what is the situation on the ground. And we have different parts of Kenya. So we will say a certain part of Kenya is quite safe, a certain part of Kenya is volatile, a certain part of Kenya is vulnerable, but as enforcement agencies, there is what we are doing to ensure that the safety and that people in Kenya feel safe. So there are enhanced capacity building for enforcement agencies, who are the first responders, who are our frontline officers in these vulnerable situations where an attack happens and they are the first ones to run towards the attack, as opposed running the opposite direction of the attack. So there is a big plus for our enforcement agencies who actually respond fast to these incidents. Again, we have done a lot for the society. There is what we call the county action plans. The county action plans are driven by the governors and the county commissioners, where the governor is the chair and the county commissioner is the co-chair. In that forum, there is what we call the County Engagement Forum, which is comprised of many people from that county, from the business sector, education sector, security sector, who come together to put their brains together and see how they can build resilience in matters countering terrorism and also countering violent extremism, especially matters of radicalization and recruitment to these terror groups. Yes.
And talking about fast responding, looking at Dusit D2, there were already some warnings.
Yes.
Looking at how we responded to the Garissa University took
Yes.
a lot of time.
Yes.
And looking at how we also responded during the El Ade attack, we could say we are a little bit slow when it comes to fast responding to some of the attacks that we've had.
Yes.
What is the center doing to ensure that now it's quite snappy, such that in case of anything, even if it's an advisory, we act and act right? Because some families argue, if at all there was a warning, this thing should not have happened.
Sure, of course, we are not 100% in this response. As a center, we have tools that we are using to ensure that the coordinated effort is not perfect, but as good as it can be. For example, we have what we called ACT, and ACT is Action Counters Terrorism. So these are tools that we use to highlight issues of terror, and we speak to members of the society, members of the county security intelligence committees on what actions they can do to counter terrorism. We have another tool, it's called RADAR. RADAR is RADAR. It's a risk assessment decision-making tool. So, of course, when we get the warnings and we have persons of interest, we use this radar to see how committed the person of interest is in issues of terrorism. And of course, again, we also see you might have an accused person or a person of interest, and you want to exonerate them from that act of terror. They could have been a taxi driver who was innocently just doing his job, but happened to carry some terrorists along doing his job. So we use this tool to also exonerate such persons. So again, we do what we call CTSECO. CTSECO is counterterrorism security coordination, and this is for big events. This one we do assessment for an event prior, during, and after the event. We also do security assessment for institutions. We can do security assessment for KBC as an institution. We have done security assessment for most of our universities. We have done security assessment for our ports, our airports, and other would-be targets for terror attacks. So there's a lot we have done, and also the sensitization that we do alongside using these tools. So there is a lot we have done since DUCIT, and we can pride ourselves. We have our inputs, and we are seeing our outcomes, and of course what the safety that the Kenyans are enjoying. Yes. So at least we can comfortably say at least we as a center, we have at least achieved something since its establishment in combating the rapidly changing terror world. Yes. And if you look at the legislation, the center is established by the Prevention of Terrorism Act, and we have a mandate in that act. And there's what we have done before DUCIT, and there's what we have done after DUCIT. So if you look at what we have done after DUCIT, it's really a lot. And there are efforts that we continue coordinating and performing to ensure that Kenya remains safe in terms of terrorism. Yes. And you've mentioned something, you've done is it risk assessment for security risk assessment for even universities? Yes. And universities are emerging as very, very fertile grounds for radicalization. Yes. And we have seen even in some of the attacks, some being students of the university. And they can blend very well as learners, but they are terrorists. How are you combating that, and especially radicalization in the border counties, including Mombasa and Lamu, where the cases seem to be a little bit higher? As I said earlier, we have the threat levels that we have. We look at counties differently. Every county has their priority. So if we go to the the county action plans. There is what that county prioritizes. Maybe I will speak a bit on the national strategic plan on the countering violent extremism. So it's called the NSCV. So the NSCV has what we call the strategic end goals. It has the strategic priorities and it has the strategic pillars. So in terms of the pillars, we have political pillar, we have the security pillar, we have the education pillar, we have the gender pillar, the role of women and men and children in terms of countering terrorism. We have the psychosocial pillar, the ideological pillar. So we have about 9 pillars. And we are also looking at the victims of terrorism. What happens to a mother of a terrorist when the terrorist is no longer there, when the terrorist is jailed? What can we learn from the mother? What are these telltale signs that we can pick from these victims? So alongside doing the security assessment, we also sensitize on issues of radicalization into violent extremism, who are the vulnerable groups, and in universities, we form those CT champions so that they can be able to pick up these early warnings, and then we can have the early interventions in such. Yes, it might not be in the public domain, but through that sensitization, we are able to pick elements of terror, and we are able to contain them in our institutions of learning. In the frontier counties, we have concerted efforts, the multi-pronged approach, the whole of society, the whole of government. And as you said, the president said, security begins with you and me. So we want to build that resilience from the societal point of view, so that the enforcement agencies, these people live within us. So if we get the information from the society, then we as enforcement agencies, we are able to perform our duty perfectly.
Okay.
Yes.
And looking at technology, it has changed the whole world.
Yes.
And of course, terrorists are using the same technology
Yes.
to further their cause.
Yes.
And looking at propaganda that they usually use on social media,
Yes.
on their websites, on their Facebook pages, how as a center are you able to perceive that threat and able to neutralize it before it gets out of hand? We've seen Al-Qaeda using social media, we've seen Al-Shabaab doing the same, we've seen the Taliban back, since when the technology started, they have been using technology and social media to further their agenda.
So again, the national strategy on countering violent extremism, we have a pillar on media and online.
Okay.
And in that platform of media and online, we bring the media players, and also we are aware and we appreciate the strength of social media. The strength of social media in terms of it can be an advantage and a disadvantage. The world has become a very small village. The Al-Qaeda will use the platform to air their narratives, to air their incidents, trying to encourage people to join them, to recruit them, to radicalize them. But we have platforms where we follow the social media. Again, for the mainstream media, I'm sure you are aware that we have done training for media personnel on how to report on cases of terrorism.
That is true.
So that you don't seem to be encouraging people to join terror groups, but you are reporting against the terror groups. So media and online is really a challenge. If you look at the COVID period, where schools were closed, and we were learning online, so we had to come up with strategies of what are our children consuming online. We are the ones who have put the Wi-Fi in our homes, and our children are busy at home. So what are they consuming online? Are they consuming violent extremist materials? And if we get these materials, what do we do? Do we delete it? Do we give counter narratives, because we know there are those narratives that they are given by the radicalizers and the recruiters? So we are doing efforts on counter narratives, of course deleting this material from online when we access it, and also keeping up with the times, because we know if you don't keep with the times, you'll be left behind. We have the citizen mechanism support in our center. The citizen mechanism support also on a day-to-day basis. They are online looking at trends, what is happening, what is being done online, so that we can have those intervention measures that can really enable us to check on the social media. Yes.
Okay, now looking at what we've gone through, I remember the head of state, President Uhuru Kenyatta, did talk about security begins with you and me.
Yes.
And earlier on, I remember we were having a conversation with you there, where when you get home drunk at 2 in the a.m., the neighbor will be like, alifika saa 8 usiku. But when thugs come and steal your things and he's asked, did you hear anything or anything? Apparently, it is so becomes that the neighbor never heard anything.
Yes.
The same way that the terrorists themselves, you cannot look at me and say, yeah, he looks like a terrorist. Yeah? They live among us.
Yes.
And telling people, reporting this, or people giving out information that they know about this person, they kind of, a lot of people shy from that, and that breeds grounds for this terrorism. As a center, how do you ensure that people are able to come out and talk about security and talk about this person is my neighbor, but I'm not quite comfortable with some of the things he's doing? How do you include that as well?
Thank you for that question. Yes, and we had discussed about the Lamu issue, and what the center is doing through the sensitization. We are trying to encourage a resilience theme. See something, say something. Don't just report your neighbor for coming home drunk at night.
Yes.
Report also what happens in terms of security, because you're the ones who see, and when you see, you say something. Of course, there's a perception that the police or the enforcement agencies will not be very positive or will not take up that issue very positively. And we know of the police reforms that are ongoing and the perceptions that we want to change with the reforms and all that. So we actually know these people live amongst us. They have gone to Somalia, for example. The proximity of Lamu and Somalia makes it very easy to infiltrate the county of Lamu. The returnees who are there are members of the society. So when we are creating awareness and sensitizing members of the public on issues of radicalization and these telltale signs, we actually tell them, this person was available some time ago. 3 months, you've not seen this person. The person is back. He has a certain behavior. Would you report that to a chief? Would you report that to an assistant county commissioner? Would you report that to the village elder who will scale it up to the enforcement agencies? And that is what we are trying to encourage. That if you see these telltale signs, we know there are the stereotypes who will see a beard like mine and say that I look like a terrorist.
Yes, yes.
But we have seen people without beards who are terrorists.
Yes.
And we are trying to demystify that issue of stereotyping. The face of terrorism, we are seeing terrorists from Busia, from Mumias, from Kakamega, you see? So it cuts across. Terrorists are coming from Nyeri. So it cuts across, and without stereotyping, there is what we are looking at. So that a neighbor will say that this neighbor of mine is behaving fishy. I think he's acquiring terror materials. I think his behavior is leading towards something that is not good. Then we take it up. So we're encouraging that if you see something, you say something. And it is better that you see something and say something, we investigate and find out that there was nothing. Other than you seeing something and not saying something, and then later something happens and you start saying, oh, I had seen this. So it really becomes a challenge. So we are trying to encourage the society to be patriotic and to be as resilient as possible. And when they see something, they say something.
Indeed.
Yes.
In case you just joined us, you're watching KBC News Check, and on this hour we are looking or focusing on war on terror. And of course, 3 days from now we'll be commemorating 3 days since the Dusit D2 attack at Riverside Drive. And now we are joined by yet another panelist who is Kevin Osido. Kevin Osido, karibu sana.
Asante, nimeshukuru.
Yeah, karibu sana. We had already started.
Yes, and I've been listening to the interesting conversation.
Very good.
I'm sorry for being late. You know, as Mr. Masisi mentioned, we have the County Engagement Forum meeting as we speak.
Yes.
And so I passed through there, and because we have the County Commissioner of Nairobi, the Deputy County Commissioners, and the different multi-stakeholders of the community are also there to basically look at the public participation process of the bill of Nairobi County to prevent and counter violent extremism. Actually,
that is where we're going to start it, but let me introduce you officially. Kevin Osido, he is the Executive Director of County Governance Watch. You will tell us exactly what they look at, but looking at what actually Masisi has talked about is that you are seeing violent extremism and also radicalization in counties. We were formerly knew that the counties bordering perhaps Somalia or something, they had that issue, but that issue is creeping up even in other counties. Karibu sana, Bwana Kevin.
Asante.
Can you tell us what you do at County Governance Watch?
County Governance Watch, as the name suggests, we watch over county governments on how they, of course, are using the taxpayers' money, aspects to do with public participation and citizen engagement in governance affairs, aspects of legal and policy frameworks that support Schedule 4 functions of the county governments insofar as running of the county affairs are concerned. And quite actually since 2015, post-Westgate attack, we have been engaging on these aspects of peace and security, but much more instrumentally looking at how citizens are getting involved in making their societies and their communities secure. And so we have a big program called the Defend My Future campaign, which is a campaign that is rallying the citizens of the Republic of Kenya, friends and partners, to be able to safeguard our communities. And therefore, you know, like Mr. Masisi said, see something, say something. And so we've been working with the center on this, the National Counterterrorism Center, on this particular program to be able to build the capacity of citizens and even law enforcement agencies to be able to also have a positive attitude towards the community. You know, one of the challenges that we have had with security aspects especially is about reporting, where you walk into a police station and you are told you are the first suspect of a case or a report which you went to levy. So we've been working with different security agencies and also law enforcement organs on this particular program, just to make it easy for citizens to engage in security and also for the security agencies to be able to be much more proactive in picking these reports and also providing feedback. So that's really what County Governance Watch does, and we have what we call the County Governance Index, therefore that assesses levels of performance of counties in all the functions that are devolved by the Constitution in Schedule 4. So that is water, agriculture, health, education, infrastructure, and also how counties are basically mainstreaming aspects that safeguard our patriotism. So that, for example, if it is a county public service board, how are they hiring people? Does the governor and his team only pick people from one community? And how does that therefore entrench aspects of cohesion and integration of our communities in the government?
Indeed, and it's a good thing that you've mentioned that you're talking about the future. You cannot talk about the future when you're not talking about the youth, and the youth are on the receiving hand when it comes to things like radicalization, and especially in counties and the county watch. And the high unemployment levels are pushing the youths towards violent extremism. As a county watch, and you've talked about the forum itself. How are we supposed to deal with this so that we may ensure that our youths do not fall into that prey?
So 3 things that we have seen happening. One of the things is, of course, government affirmative action programs. And if you talk about unemployment levels or poverty levels in our country, the the segment of population that is worst hit is indeed, as you rightfully said, the youth. And interestingly is that government has come up with almost 11 different affirmative action programs. Most of them are aimed at, safeguarding or giving the youth a safe space to be able to either have your capacity built if you're already in business or you're an entrepreneur that is doing very well but you have gaps that could probably be related to things like aspects like value addition or finding market for your goods. So government already has agencies, that are supposed to engage with young people. So what we are doing at County Governance Watch is to provide linkages, where, for instance, we identify these young people, these groups, and we write letters and use the kind of networks that we have, such as the National Counterterrorism Center, the State Department of Youth Affairs, among several other government, both national and county government organs, to be able to provide those linkages. The second thing is to undertake assessment of uptake of this affirmative action program, so that, for instance, how much does a county like Kiambu or a county like Mandera or Lamu have for young people who are at risk? And how has government made it easy for them to be able to access? And a youth at risk and a youth who would want to probably take advantage of that unemployment situation, if you look at their lifestyles and some of the tools that Mr. Masisi was mentioning, and you begin to assess their lifestyles, a lot of these people are not people who will show up in a nicely dressed suit like myself. So most of them are people who probably have given up. They are hopeless and they imagine that nothing good can come from them. And some of them probably don't even have national ID cards. So if you look at some of the requirements that government has put in place for them to be able to submit to benefit from some of these affirmative action funds, then most of these young people who are at risk then are left out. So what we have done with particularly engagement with the State Department of Youth Affairs is to try and work with the CEOs and the fund managers of these funds to see how the government can be able to give them a cap off, so that some of the requirements are either lessened and made easy for them, so that it is exciting for these young people to begin to apply or gain interest, in application of some of these funds. The third thing is, of course, to look at what we call the policy and legislation angle, which is therefore to look at, does the government, both national and county, have policies that will give strength to the youth to be able to see value in why it is important for them to be involved, so that they either create jobs or get involved in those job creation mechanisms. So what we have done as an organization is to work through the Council of Governors, what we call the development of county youth action plans, which really look at the context of that young individual. What is the best thing that you can do within your county? And so has the county government put in place a mechanism to safeguard what you want to do? So that, for instance, if you go to Kisii and there is a lot of soapstone carving, has the county assembly passed a law that would also lead towards on-source revenue by supporting that soapstone carving artisanry work that the youth are doing? Has the social development officer, helped them to register so that they are able to benefit from some of these funds? Because one of the requirements is that you are actually registered by the government. And so without that registration, it becomes difficult for you to benefit. And that benefit, so that you deal with aspects of unemployment and encouraging these young people to not just look at government as an employment agency, but also looking at how they can be able to, on their own volition, come up with mechanisms and methods of, creating employment. We do the fourth thing, which is working with government agencies to build the capacity of these young people. And we have had very many forums, including just yesterday when we convened about 384 young people of Kasarani sub-county of Nairobi to be able to look at the opportunities within the sub-county and how they can be able to benefit, and not necessarily look at government as the place to get employment. And definitely, of course,
you are keeping the youths away from violent extremism and radicalization. Masisi, grief, pain, regrets characterize victims and families of people who have undergone perhaps a terror attack.
Yes.
As a center, do you offer psychosocial support to these people who are victims?
Yes. As I said, maybe I touch on what Osido has just said about the push and pull factors. Many people who are radicalized or recruited into terror groups, they have grievances. So these grievances are brought about by the push and pull factors. The poverty, education, marginalization, those geopolitics issues. So the government is really doing a lot to address these issues, like issues of free education, issues of kazi kwa vijana. You know, they come up with initiatives that try to keep the youth busy and also engaged, whether it's money-wise or through activities, so that they are kept devoid of violent extremists. And then when we look at what the center is doing, the pillar for psychosocial pillar really addresses many a times. If I give you an example of a suspect and a victim, who is many a times given more focus, it is the suspect.
Actually the suspect.
They'll be given transport,
Yes.
they'll be given food in the cells,
Security, tight
so what
security.
happens to the victim?
Yes.
So we are saying that the victims of terror, those who have been hurt, those who have lost children to terror activities, what do we do with them? So we counsel them, we engage them in forums, and we talk to them. We learn from them. What did you see with your child? How did you know they went to Somalia or something? Others will come and say, yes, I think my child is in Somalia. Why do you think your child is in Somalia? This is the way they were behaving. So we take up that and we try and sensitize that if this victim would see this in their child, would it be a lesson that we would like to give to other parents, so that they can also have those early warnings to tell on what to do. So there's a lot of psychosocial support that we give at the center, and also trying to bring them on board, because again we know youths radicalize each other.
Yes.
A brother will radicalize a brother. So if you have lost your brother through terror, what is the likelihood that you also join a terror group? So we also keep abreast with what is happening with that family, so that at least we can build the resilience and also make them see life on the better side. Yes.
Gentlemen, and this is something that always comes up when we have an attack on patriotism and nationalism, because it is alleged that mostly people know who these people are because they live among us. And in counties, it's quite simple, because now we are seeing different counties, people from, as Masisi has talked about, from Western, from Lower Eastern, as a county watch. What is the level of radicalization that you have seen, and especially in counties? And how are you working with the Counterterrorism Center to ensure that these youths, there are some who come out and say, I was in Somalia, I was radicalized. How do you help these people? And how can we help them? Perhaps Masisi will chip in with that, will add on that.
One of the things that we have done and continue to do with the support of and capacity building mechanisms from NCTC is, of course, the creation of safe spaces. And these safe spaces are not, from our way of looking at it, is not a place where maybe you will see very high level security intervention. It's purely maybe a border network, you know, a women group somewhere, a youth center, like what county governments are today doing, where counties are putting together social halls where young people can walk in, and is more or less like a one-stop shop where you can just go in and sit and ventilate or get somebody to talk to, particularly through the psychosocial issues. And the county action plans, which Mr. Masisi also spoke about, have really been quite a platform where we have seen young people now taking advantage of, and just because of the fact that it brings security agencies closer to the people, because these are security officers who sit with communities to discuss their security and peace mechanisms or peace building mechanisms, and how there's citizens or young people can be able to also participate without necessarily looking at security as something that is only left for the government. And so from our and interventions, as I mentioned earlier on, is to look at the policies that have been put in place by the counties. And as we speak, the Council of Governors is also one of the agencies that we have worked with very closely, and through their security committee that is led by the governor of Tana River, we have had very deep-seated conversations around how these national government programs that are being managed by State Department of Youth Affairs can also be devolved. And you know, when you talk about that, it's difficult to say that there is national government youth and county government youth. And as you said, the cross-border interventions of counties, and particularly looking at the regional blocks, like Jumuiya County, Pwani, Lake Region Economic Block, the counties have unique features that therefore feed into each other. And so we have asked county governments through their departments of youth and education to look at those common features, therefore that can be able to excite young people to not look at Nairobi as the best place to go to, or look at Mandera as a exit route towards, you know, radicalization and then coming back to attack people, but to look at how can you be able to add value within your county government, even if there is nothing that you think is coming out of that county. And we have seen quite a number of young people now thinking beyond, you know, what the government can be able to do, to look at what is it that I can be able to do, and what are the opportunities that exist within our county governments. And the beauty of it is that through the offices of the governors, they have also put in place on the budget some funds, which is more or less, it looks like an affirmative fund, but is purely left for young people who feel so vulnerable. And how we have seen counties creating or taking advantage of the safe spaces I was talking about is through sporting activities, where in many counties they have months or days when they have just set it aside for sporting activities. And so as civil society organizations, we take advantage of those platforms and move in there and invite NCTC for public awareness sessions, invite the county commissioners for security briefing sessions, and sometimes even prisons, because some of these young people are people who have been to the prison and back. And so,
Kevin, do the young people know that this program do exist? Because at the end of the day, they are geared, or they are focused on the youths, and especially you've talked about the most vulnerable.
Yeah.
Do they know that these projects are there, and especially in the counties?
Yes, through awareness. Of course, I know that convincing them to see the value and, basically the benefit right now, like instant coffee, gratification becomes very difficult. It has to be different, and it has to be seen differently by youth from being given 50 shillings or 1,000 shillings to gratify your your right now need. But through the interventions that are constant, and the kind of networks that the young people have organized, because that is how we help them to benefit from some of these interventions by the government. So I will say that yes, the young people know, but if you look at their interests and the desire, which is really about how can I benefit from what you are doing now, the waiting period then becomes a challenge, because most of them are looking for my immediate benefit as opposed to working towards the system to be able to benefit maybe at a later stage. But how the center has been able to work with us in this particular aspect is, of course, through coming forward to be present, build the capacity of young people. Mr. Masisi and Mr. Njenga and the others have taken us through the radicalization process, the terrorist planning circle, and so that knowledge and information really becomes very critical, and that is how we use the safe spaces to be able to also infuse the knowledge around prevention of violent extremism and radicalization.
Masisi, how do we help youths that come out and say that I remember there's an incident where some youths went to Somalia, they were radicalized, they were promised that, I don't know, I think $1,000 per month, but the money was not forthcoming, or the parks were not there, so they decided to come back. How do we help such kind of a person? Because we need to reintegrate this person back into the society. But that person is not the person that left Kenya, went to Somalia, was radicalized and came back. How do we help that person? And especially the young people.
So as a government, the national strategy on countering violent extremism has a priority on delegitimizing and rejecting all efforts of violent extremism. So as a center, when we face these returnees, because we refer to them as returnees, we have a program, it's called DDRR. DDRR stands for disengagement, de-radicalization, rehabilitation and reintegration. So number one, we disengage. So how do we disengage? We disengage you physically. We disengage you in terms of contact, so that, because the more you contact them, the more they will radicalize you and give you an ideology that you need to actualize.
I'm not under custody at the moment, right?
You're not.
Okay.
So when we disengage you, we disengage you physically and contact-wise. Then we de-radicalize you. So we have the ideological pillar that you are calling interfaith. So we bring in the specialists, who are the sheikhs, the imams, who actually know what the Quran is speaking about, what are the true narratives that these young men need to know. So with the intervention of the imams, we de-radicalize this youth. They are told the truths about their faith and what they are supposed to do about their faith. Then now we rehabilitate them. They have been there, excuse me. So they have probably been involved in terror fighting, and now coming back to Kenya to maybe perform a terrorist attack. But then they see that, no, this is actually not my calling. I need to go back to who I was. So we rehabilitate them back to the normal state of a person. So we have agencies, we have partners, CSOs, who come in and try and rehabilitate these young people. Then now we reintegrate them back to the society. So how do we reintegrate them back to the society? You can go back to school, get a KCSE certificate, get your degree certificate, diploma certificate. What do you want to do? I want to start a car wash, I want to start a boda, I want to start a business. So we have those support mechanisms that we help this youth come back to the society. It is a risky affair. It is a dangerous and risky affair, because as government, as we are disengaging, de-radicalizing and rehabilitating them, the terror groups are also following them so that they can go back to the cause for the terror group. So we really have to be very careful when we are disengaging, de-radicalizing, rehabilitating and reintegrating this youth. And again, we have seen scenarios where, yes, the youth have come up, they say they were in Somalia. We don't have the empirical data that this youth were in Somalia. A certain organization comes up, gives them bodas, and you find many other youth coming up and saying, oh, even us, we were in Somalia, which is not true. So we also have to verify.
I thought they would be afraid that they would be arrested.
No, they are seeing the incentive and
the perks.
These returnees are getting. And again, this program, we take it to the enforcement agencies, because how does a special operation officer in Wajir, in Lamu, when they see a youth returning in full Al-Shabaab gear, how do they react? The first reaction will be maybe to shoot this young man, this young person. But through that program, then they can see this person has surrendered. This person is the one who is giving himself up. So there must be something, so that when we take them up, we are able to get more information. We are able to know who radicalized them, who recruited them, and so the program really works well with the returnees.
Indeed. Have you witnessed the same problem? Because the program that he's talking about is more or less like the way a person is released from jail and now is rehabilitated into the society. Have you worked with the same program?
We have witnessed those kind of interventions, and in fact that's why initially I mentioned the aspect of affirmative action.
Yes.
Because there is just this much that government can be able to do. And as I mentioned, there are also young people that in their getting back to be reintegrated, they don't probably want to be identified. So what we have seen happening is how to therefore amalgamate them into ongoing programs like car wash businesses, the boda networks, things that then give them the opportunity to also feel like they are accepted, appreciated back, and what Mr. Masisi has mentioned has been quite fundamental, especially from Nairobi County, and we have seen the assistant county commissioners, the deputy county commissioners, basically the county security intelligence committee being very critical in terms of, you know, being the first person or the first people to receive some of these young people, because the aspect of security then scares them even away from the community. And in the event that they want to get back, even those who are from prisons, one of the things that we have done and keep doing is to organize common events, like I mentioned, the soccer plays.
Yes.
And we have had a number of them, and even other organizations that are also part of the County Engagement Forum, organizing soccer events that bring together some of these youth that have been either brought back to the community and they want to feel accepted, playing together with policemen. And you see, after that event, we have conversations, and that's how we have also been able to see the de-escalation of a number of terror attacks even in Nairobi, because now there's a lot of sharing of information. People are beginning to say, I saw this happening, what does it mean? And even from capacity building aspect that NCTC does with most of us, is to be able to also empower them with information, that if you see this kind of thing, it means this. If you have a friend or a neighbor who is behaving this way, begin to, you know, report to the nearest police station. And if you go to the police station, this is how you make your report. And we have even had sessions where we help them understand what the OB number means, how it is done, and basically the implications of those kind of reports. And it's been quite positive in terms of attitude change, acceptance by these young people, and then also attitude change from the security agencies. And so we have seen a lot of, you know, joint sharing and common engagement between security agencies, the youth groups, and a lot of this has been successful through unconventional means, like car wash sessions. You could be a deputy county commissioner who takes off your official uniform, you drive your car into a car wash, just like any other person, and you begin a conversation. And we have seen those kind of attitude elements really being quite instrumental in dealing with the war on terror in Nairobi.
And because of the interest of time, we need to pick up pace. Looking at what Kevin has talked about, is that of course we are enjoying quite a secure environment, so to speak.
Yes.
But looking at some places like Lamu, we've had sporadic attacks several times, and the insurgents just slip back to Somalia. Why is it that we cannot decide that we have to sort that problem out, just like we did for Mashifta back in the 80s and the 90s? Why is it that always comes out? I know it is a security question, but the Lamu corridor,
yes,
and the northern frontier,
yes,
we seem to be having an issue there. Other counties, we are enjoying relative calm.
There are many concerted efforts by the government to ensure that the frontier counties, Lamu, Wajir, Mandera, Garissa, remain safe. What we have to appreciate is that terrorism is here with us, and it is a menace that we have to deal with. It is a day-to-day activity for the government to deal with issues of terrorism, because we have to protect our citizens and our friends who are in Kenya. And there are efforts, and as we'll say, there's the soft approach and there's the hard approach. So the hard approach, the soft approach will not work without the hard approach. The hard approach will not work without the soft approach.
True.
So the hard approach is the tactical, the techniques that are used, the procedures which are used. So there is a lot that is being done in these frontier counties by the enforcement agencies, and also by us as NCTC, going there, talking with the youth, talking with the imams. The imams also tell on each other. They see that whatever he's preaching is I think is not right. He has a small group that he calls after the prayers. So what is he telling this small group? So they tell on each other, and this is something that we pride of, because the more we talk and the more we create awareness along those frontier counties, the more we create resilience. The proximity to Somalia, again, as I said, makes it easy for those who are there to infiltrate. We know of the transnational migration. With the help of the national coordination mechanism, we are able to tell that okay, these are Kenyans, so they'll go to Somalia where they have a relative and come back to Kenya where they have a relative. So how do you pick that the intention they went to do there was actually a terror thing or not? So without really creating this awareness among those communities that are there, then we will be failing in our efforts. But we are doing that. The returnees, the element of returnees in Lamu is also another issue. Yeah. So how does the neighbor tell that this is a returnee? Maybe they have come in the cell that we call the sleeper cell. So they are just waiting for activation. Yeah. So if this person is waiting for activation, well, how are they behaving? And how would a neighbor of goodwill tell that this person, I think this person, the behavior is not right? So we are really doing so much effort in those frontier counties, and we are winning. We are winning. Yes, and we thank the society for what they are doing. The reports that we get on a day-to-day basis, they are really helping us in ensuring that we fulfill our mandate.
Indeed.
Yes.
And we are taking a quick commercial break, and then we will be back to wrap this up. Of course, I'm joined by Senior Superintendent of Police, who is Masisi Kilu, and Kevin Osido, who is the Executive Director for the County Governance Watch. Of course, counties being on the forefront to ensure that our youths do not plunge into terrorism or be radicalized. We'll be back after this break.
Your revolutions, you've had your cartel wars, but you've never had global dealers in violence. Farina de la Renta, Contra, up and over. Wow.
Wiki hii kwenye Mkulima tutazingatia ufugaji wa kuku wa kienyeji improved,
kuku it's effortless.
Kisha tufuge ng'ombe wa maziwa mjini.
Huku ni Nairobi, yes, na hakuna shamba. That is the biggest challenge we have. So the only thing we do, na utilize ile space kidogo iko, because the government is unapata ina to encourage.
Basi usikose kujiunga nasi Jumapili saa 9:30 kwa mseto kamili wa kilimo hapa KBC Channel.
Log on to the KBC website at www.kbc.co.ke to get the latest breaking news, entertainment, sports, politics, lifestyle or business trends from Kenya and around the world. Never miss new episodes from your favorite TV shows, reruns and movies. Just stream online or watch live on your YouTube channel at KBC Channel 1 TV shows. For the day's biggest stories, trustworthy news and family entertainment, log on to KBC Channel 1. Watch what you want anytime, anywhere.
Welcome back to KBC News Check, and let's now wrap it up on war on terrorism. As I had alluded to earlier, we have Senior Superintendent of Police, and he is also the Principal Liaison Officer at the National Counter-Terrorism Center, and we also have the Executive Director for the County Governance Watch. Gentlemen, in a minute each, in your bio, you've talked about you want to change, of course, Kenya and the world if you give an opportunity. In your own words, how are you going to change that? And do you believe and do you think that we are winning the war on terrorism? In a minute.
Yes, I believe we are winning the war on terrorism. The government is doing really good. And I believe doing good in where I work from. So as NCTC, we have the efforts that we are doing, and we really laud the support that we get at the center. So the change I would like to have is ensure that there is security in Kenya and beyond. Having been born and bred in the Eastlands, we always tell that where you come from does not have to determine what you become.
That's true.
So you become a true agent, you become a good example, and the youth and other like-minded people can ape what I'm doing. So I believe I can be a true change, and I can be an influencer of change. And the war on terrorism is on. We are not sleeping. We are being resilient. And I ask the larger society, if you see something, say something.
And you're not vying for any position, are you?
No, I'm not.
Not at the moment.
No, I'm not.
Okay, wrap it up, Kevin.
Mine is basically what I normally say, PTTTK. Pamoja twaweza, tuwe tayari kuilinda. Tusi pamoja twaweza is basically the efforts of everybody. You don't have to be a security officer, you know, to defend Kenya's borders and to defend Kenyans and, you know, engage young people in anti-radicalization, anti-terrorism. And from the words of our national anthem, tuwe tayari kuilinda, because if we don't defend and protect our motherland, our country, and defending doesn't mean that you carry a gun. It doesn't mean that you're the one who is there to be, you know, at the forefront of everything. It's purely about the little steps that we make every day when we wake up. What is my role? What is the role of my neighbor? What is the role of my community, my society? And each of us putting our hands on deck, we will be able to actually linda nchi yetu ya Kenya. The war on terror, as Masisi says, is on. Kenya is leading. In fact, the county action plans are a global phenomenon. No other country in the whole globe has county action plans that domicile anti-terrorism and prevention of violent extremism at the wananchi level.
Meaning so we are on the right track.
We are actually on the right track.
And for avoidance of doubt, National Counter-Terrorism Center is the equivalent of CIA in the US or FBI, or which one is it? Or which one actually is almost the same work you're
Counter-Terrorism Unit.
Yeah, it's a CT. It's a CT unit.
Okay. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Superintendent of Police, Senior Superintendent, apologies for that, of Police, and also the Principal Liaison Officer at the National Counter-Terrorism Center, which works hand in hand. By the way, these two gentlemen know each other from the work that you are doing. Kevin Osido, who is Executive Director of the County Governance Watch. Thank you so much for making time. I think we should have this conversation again so that we may fortify what we are actually, the fruits that we are having. Of course, when we come back, we will be having some politics. We discuss matters politics. We have seen politics, and the drum beats are already picking up pace. But before then, let's first of all cross over to Kilifi, where Interior Cabinet, Interior PS Karanja Kibicho is leading other PSs in inspecting government projects there. Let's see what they are doing there.
objective for our company is clear. Programs in Kwale. One is doing inspection program in Kilifi, Mombasa, and ourselves, we are here for this specific project. We are aware this is a flagship project that was started some time back, conceptualized in 2012, and is supposed to expand our training programs and the hospitality industry. At completion, this project is supposed to accommodate 1,000 students, and it has all the accompanying facilities for training in the hospitality industry, paying special attention to the maritime sector. And we are here to just check and inspect the level of completion, because we have decided as government to do phased completion of this project that will admit most likely early next year or late this year the first batch of 250 students. So we are here to ensure that we will be ready for that, and we have been going round as you've seen, which just satisfying myself that everything is in place. We are happy to report that overall for the isolated completion phase, we are at 71%. We have seen some of these buildings just about to get completed, and then we embark on the external landscaping work. Then we go to the other phase that will complete the remaining tuition blocks, the remaining hostels and staffing quarter. So we are satisfied that within the time frame that the contractor has given in this year, we will be able to deliver that first phase of this project. After here, we are going to see other projects. We will go to the Recreation Center at Fort Jesus. We will go to Watoni. We will also go to Mangena. So we are here for that project. Asante.
Mr. Principal, has this project taken long, and there were issues of misapplication of funds. So for now, someone to go and explain. Can you elaborate on that?
This visit has not taken long. It's only that you are seeing me here, but every week there are a group of people who are here. We are not in Mombasa for this project. We are in Mombasa so that all of us can spread across to see many other projects, including this one. The construction has had its issues in terms of availability of funds. Remember, these are projects that were started in the other regime of that President Mwai Kibaki, and I think the handing over of those projects, there are quite a number of them that were flagship projects then, and because of its importance, then funding has been directed to it, and I think when a project relays, there are obviously costs that accompany that delay in terms of mobilization of the contractors, in terms of changes of even prices. And I think as people must learn to appreciate these realities. The cost of cement in 2012 is very different from cost of cement today, and therefore if we are to be fair even to the contractor,
unataka nini?
Kwani wewe ndivyo?
Hajalishi wewe sema utakaje.
Yaani utakwambia kweli kabisa? Kama mamako alikwambia nilifariki, basi alikudanganya.
Wewe usijifananishe na Bahati Maya.
Kwa sababu ya ujinga wa mume wako, mtafilisika kabisa.
Nimeshakuwa mtu mzima na najua maana ya kuwa huru, lakini yeye hataki kunielewa.
Mimi si kama
mwana wa nyoka ni nyoka.
Utasema mke wangu mimi? Wewe umemwoa kwa mahari, umefunga nikaha, unampatia chakula, mavazi na nyumba, kila kitu, mke wako. Alafu mtu from nowhere au ni rafiki akwambia tumchangie, unaweza ukaleta mpaka uadui kwa sababu hicho kilma.
Hakika swala zangu na vichinjo vyangu na vile vile maisha yangu na kifo changu vyote ni vya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, na mie ni mmoja wa Waislamu.
I'm still gonna try. I'm up in the clouds with no wings. I'ma fly, oh fly away, fly away, fly away.
Indeed, welcome back to News Check. And earlier on, we had a conversation on matter of security. Now we are focusing on politics. But before we start, Interior and Coordination of National Government Principal Secretary Karanja Kibicho, there earlier on actually addressing the media there together or flanked by other Principal Secretary in a national tour of inspection of projects, and especially in Kilifi County. Some of the things he has talked about is that all the projects are firmly on course for completion, bearing in mind that we also have a general election later on this year. Of course, he has talked about they're satisfied, or the government is satisfied with where those projects have gotten so far. And he has talked about some of the projects being completed before the term of the president is concluded or before the election, some actually in the next couple of months. That is a conversation also we will touch on the legacy, and especially now that we have a couple of months, less than 7 months to the general polls. In the second hour, I'm joined by two gentlemen. We will discuss matters politics, and on my immediate left we have Alenga. I told you about this name, Torostad.
Yes.
It's German.
Yeah.
Okay. You will tell us about that name. And of course, always a pleasure having you, Dr. Churchill Saoke, who is also a political commentator and also a lecturer at the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture, Science and Technology. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Perhaps to start with you, Churchill. Are we more divided now than we were when we were going to the polls in the year 2017, based on what we are having in politics now? Or have we been able at least to be a little bit more cohesive?
Well, the question of cohesion, you know, it's we cannot really say the relativity comparison to the 2017 scenario. Because as expected, the country will always be divided along political inclinations. And I think maybe what might be of interest for us is as to the polarity, the extent of the polarities of the different communities where they are living. Of course, as was in 2017, politicians will always take advantage of wanting to wipe emotions of people to get votes. I mean, these are things that have been expected. Of course, we're already beginning to see that. We're already beginning to see that now. So the divisions, I think the divisions that we are seeing is not something new. It's not something new in our political.
The severity will make the difference.
Well, the severity will make the difference, and in 2017, I would sort of say that considering that there was a government that was coming into place, and there was already a specific voting bloc that was existing, and so the President Uhuru Kenyatta and the Deputy President were seeking a second term, so sort of their voting bloc was already intact, and so they only needed to ensure that they hold that electoral bloc. So the idea about creating emotions to get new voters by creating division really was not there until after the elections, when now people began fighting. So for me, I think that it is still too early to think that we are too divided. It is all we can confirm is that some of the politicians are already beginning to raise war drums for their own selfish gains from across the political divide.
Alenga, 3 legislators are already on the radar of NCIC, DCI, and the courts as well, because we have one who has already been charged, who was not charged but was arraigned in court. That is the Meru Senator Mithika Linturi. Looking at that, it's only 12 days, and the IEBC has not even announced that the campaigns have officially started. What do you read in this politics?
Thank you very much for this opportunity to be on your show once again.
Welcome.
To begin with, I would like to say that the problem with this country is that we as the people of Kenya think episodically. There are things that mean a lot to us during a certain period, and once that is gone, then we forget and we just get back as small children and we start doing the same things that build up to violence. If you look at the situation in 2007, it began with very dismal undertones, and they were building up slowly by slowly. There was that progressive preparation of minds that the election win might go a certain direction, and then people were prepared towards that direction, and everything they were doing was in preparing how they will receive that news and how they will combat it. And then we could be able to see certain leaders stand on the podium and issue certain statements, and these statements are very powerful because the people down there listen to their leaders. And when these leaders take the podium and speak those things, they don't just vanish in the air. They have an effect they have and an impact they have on the people who listen to them. So if we are a nation that learns from history, then if we look back to 2007 and how it built up, we should be able to tell ourselves now it's time we chart a different direction. Back to the issues of NCIC, that may not be a really big concern, but the big concern is action going to be taken against these legislators, action that can deter other people from doing the same things they are doing. But as we know, and as history informs us in this country, justice is for the rich and the law is for the poor. So you will definitely see those politicians flanked by very expensive lawyers and other leaders who will be in support of what they said, and then will be 2-3 days that issue will go. And then that does not stop other people from coming forth and spewing hate and changing the mentality of Kenyans. But again, our politics have this intrinsic binary aspect. Like every time we are approaching the general election, we are looking at it as a binary formation of this side against this side. Today you're hearing a lot of the hustler proclamations, and then other people have already been divided as those who have, or the dynasties, or that. But then the fundamental question is, these Kenyans who are out here and support maybe they support the bid for Deputy President William Ruto, are they necessarily hustlers? And then those who support maybe Honorable Raila Odinga, are they necessarily dynasties? These are just Kenyans who like this particular leader, and they resonate with what he's saying. These others just like this other leader and they resonate what he's saying. So if we can arrive at that point where we begin looking at our politics in terms of ideology and persuasion, then we will be able to vacate this position, this current position of ethnic mobilization, the feeling of victimization, and the preparation to react in the event the election does not go our way.
And Churchill, looking at flashing back in 2007, technology and social media was not as advanced as it is, and you saw the damage that we were able to do to this country as Kenyans ourselves, because we were not in war with any other country. We were just ourselves. And looking at the social media now is quite robust, and it's being misused, so to speak, because looking at those clips, the moment that he talked about whatever he talked about, a good example, the senator and Onyonka, the clips circulate within minutes everywhere. Is that a red zone? The social media, because we wouldn't want the government to control our social media as it has happened in our neighboring countries. Case in point is Uganda.
Absolutely. I think this is for me, I look at it as a positive thing. As a free society and an open society, because what would have been the opposite, and what will be the impact of the opposite? The impact of the opposite will be that these incitements are done at closed doors, and operatives happen at closed doors, and people suffer at closed doors, and we have mass murders at closed doors without them coming into the public glamour. But now when you look at the robustness of the media and the robustness of the social media, it has sort of created a scenario where the power, not really the powers that be, but the institutions and the agencies that are responsible for holding the national cohesion and the security agencies, they have now been put to task to take action against some of these people. So I think that it is something positive that Kenyans are becoming more vigilant in ensuring that they are doing a job that should have been done by somebody in government. And so the government agencies sort of are now moving and following what the people of Kenya expect them to do. And I think this is the main purpose of having a strong civil society organization that is able to not only keep government in check, but also complement government work in ensuring that the country is at peace. For example, I'm just thinking that NCIC might not maybe have the capacity to go everywhere and monitor every speeches that people make, but through some of these media platforms, they are able to get what is happening across the country, in all corners of the country, and take action against some of these people. So I think for me, it is, in as much as on the opposite hand, it flames up the what, for example, Senator said, but on the other hand, it actually brings it open and onto the fore so that action can be taken.
Alenga, looking at the political parties amendment bill, fiasco in the National Assembly, and of course we're waiting for the Senate to make a determination on the same, but we saw clear divisions. The political parties amendment bill, when it becomes an act, it will help Kenyans post 2022 election. It will also govern 2027. It will govern for the rest of the elections. But looking at even the way those MPs were voting, it clearly shows there is a division based on the 2022 succession politics. Is that objectivity and in the part of our leaders? Because this is something that is going to help them even when they are not there, even when our kids are MPs. But when they were voting, we saw a sharp division that is based on the 2022 succession politics alone.
It's a terrible place to find ourselves as a country, because we have a parliament that clearly is sectarian, and then therefore does not even serve the interest of the common man. So what we have as a parliament is a parliament that serves the interests of what they call their principal leaders. So for instance, you have that division in the parliament between those MPs that are allied to the deputy president and those that are in support of the president. But interestingly, that is actually supposed to be one government. You even have a further interesting bit where you have a deputy president who is already having his own party, and then somehow still belonging to the ruling party, and somehow still holding the position of deputy president.
Yes.
So we do not have that political morality of saying, well, if I have found my own outfit and I have gone full blast to seek for the president of the presidency of the Republic of Kenya, I cannot do that while being an active deputy president to a running presidency. So as a matter of morality, maybe there should have been a resignation. But then we know this is not the place where such resignations happen. Somebody would rather die. But then when we look at the debate in the parliament, in as much as the amendment to the Political Act is concerned, I have been interrogating this point, that at no point have the antagonists said this is the particular part of the bill that we are not comfortable with. When they come forth and tell you that the Register of Political Parties is going to have immense power, is going to police political parties, but when you go to the bill and read it one by one, you understand that the only thing that the Register of Political Parties will do will ratify the decisions that have been made by the political formations. So where is the problem in you making your deliberations as a political party, and then you take these deliberations or what you have agreed to the Register of Political Parties, who in turn ratifies the decision you have made. That bill also takes away that power of political party leaders just kicking out members from the party because maybe they don't want you, or they have disagreed about something ideologically or personally. So it puts there a framework within which you can be able to be kicked out of a party. And then there's also the aspect of party lists. We have seen in political parties in this country, there are people who work hard for political parties. There are people who truly deserve nomination slots. But when the time for nominations comes, people nominate their girlfriends and concubines and close friends and relatives. So if we have a framework that ensures that proper nominations will be done in order to give us quality in the National Assembly, what is the problem with that? But what we should be deeply indicting in our conversations is the model through which we elect these leaders. And that is what the bill tries to cure in the sense of the issue about coalition building. Because we have had coalitions in this country where people basically gang up to go into power. So when they get into power, then they now start figuring out what is required of me as a leader. I have been elected as the MP for this constituency, but then what is required of me? They start now figuring out on the job. But then now, if you give a framework for a coalition building, which gives adequate time for somebody to really join a coalition because they are convicted to the cause of that coalition.
Hold the thought. And Churchill, you're going to add on that. Right now, we are crossing over to Eastleigh. You do remember the DP is campaigning in various parts of Nairobi. Let's listen in.
We are not going to buy fear. We are not going to buy blackmail and intimidation. We are going to liberate our country this year by making sure that we get rid of an economic model that empowers few people and come up with the bottom-up economic model that will give every citizen a chance to be their best in this nation called Kenya. Tunakubaliana jameni? Mimi nataka niwaulize nyinyi watu wa Nairobi. Mnataka tuendelee na mfumo wa uchumi ambayo inafaidi watu wachache na kuhangaisha watu wengi, ama mnasema tubadilishe? Tubadilishe ili tuwe na model ya uchumi ambayo inahakikisha kwamba hawa vijana wanapangiwa ajira kwanza. Model ya uchumi ambayo inapanga pesa ya biashara kwa hawa watu wa chini hawa kwanza, na ambayo inahakikisha kwamba chakula inapatikana kwa bei nafuu, ndio kila mmoja wetu aweze kulisha familia yake. Na wauliza watu wa Nairobi, mnasema tuendelee kungojea ile inatoka juu, hatujui itafika lini, ama tubadilishe tuanze na chini? Tuendelee kungojea ya juu ama tubadilishe tuanze chini? Tuanze chini. Nairobi mnasema tuanze chini, ndio tupange ajira ya hawa vijana kwanza, ndio tupange biashara yenu kwanza hapa chini, na tupunguze gharama ya chakula kwanza hapa chini. Nauliza nyinyi Nairobi, tuendelee kungojea ya juu ama tuanze chini? Mnasema tuanze chini. Tuanze chini alafu tuende juu. Mnasema tuanze kwa bottom. Hapa bottom alafu tuende up. Bottom alafu up. Bottom up. Mnasema ni bottom up. Mnasema ni bottom up. Mnasema ni bottom up. Wapo watu wa bottom up hapa, nione watu wa bottom up, bottom up. Kana hilo tumekubaliana? Mimi nawashukuru sana. Wacha nichukue nafasi hii niwakaribishe viongozi walio hapa. Tunaanza na nani? Nyinyi shukeni sasa, wacha tuanze na huyu mungwana. Wapi MCA? Anaitwa nani mwenye kwanza hapa? Aya, wapi loudspeaker? Wapi microphone? Tuanze na huyo mungwana, anaitwa Mheshimiwa Swagmaster. Swagmaster hapo. Nairobi oye! Nairobi oye! Nikisema UDA mnasema Hustler Nation. UDA! UDA! Bishop. Let it come. Naibu wa Rais.
Alluded to, and he's talking about the bottom-up economic model. He's talking about the youth, and also talking about the cost of living, saying that if he ascends to power, he wants to start from bottom going up, as he has always drummed up support for his bottom-up economic model. Of course, among other places that he's supposed to go, today his itinerary was from Kamukunji to the Austin grounds in Mathare, Embakasi North, Embakasi West, Embakasi Central, later Soweto and Kayole Junction. We have our team, as you've seen right there, to give us a more comprehensive report, and they're following the DP wherever that rally takes them. And let me appreciate some people here. Victor Marcia, watching from Alego Karapul Siaya. Rahim, watching from Kingech Bess, Bomet County, saying keep up the good work. Thank you. Well done. You're watching from Nandi Hills, and of course thank you. Let's keep them coming. In case you just joined us, we are talking about matters politics, and before we crossed over to Eastleigh, my panel and I here, we were talking about how we have seen some divisions when it came to the political parties amendment bill, signaling that we have clear clear divisions on where people are laying their allegiance, bearing in mind that they are talking about something that is going to help Kenyans even in other political years or election years. And Churchill, you were to chip in with that, the divisions that we have seen sharply, something that is going to help the whole country. And looking at what even the DP and his brigade are talking about, and the Azimio, they are on their side. And to me, I'm not comfortable with that as a Kenyan, because if we are talking about matters national, we should be objective as leaders.
Yeah, you know, this is something that has happened before, and I think, as my colleague Alenga mentioned, the greatest challenge that we have in Kenya is the bipolarism of our politics, and especially when it takes the duality in terms of, you know, you have two peripheries of political thinking at any given time. And we end up with scenarios where people do not make decisions objectively, as you say. And we counter something because somebody stands for it, even if we know deep within ourselves that it's good for us. If my people don't want Ben, then anything that Ben stands for, we will oppose it, even if it will help us in the future.
Yes.
And so in the long run, we end up making decisions that are extremely and are extremely short-lived. And this has made us make quite some bad choices with the leadership, and bad choices in terms of even selection of even certain key decisions at the national level. And it's something that is quite unfortunate, because you end up realizing that, you know, we will really have to be amending laws over and over at time, because we have to fit these laws we have to make these laws to fit specific short-term interests. So we don't make laws for posterity. The amendments, the miscellaneous amendments, will always come every now and then, because we want to make them to fit specific interests at that time. And even at that time, the divisions will always follow they will always follow the duality of politics at that particular time. So it's something that is extremely unfortunate, and as Alenga has mentioned, there's no ideology that really surrounds this. When you look at the advanced democracies, you will see that every decision that is made in the legislature or even in the executive is defined by the ideology that defined those political formations. So you do not just wake up and make a decision because, you know, we have a personality who is a political leader of party X and is opposing somebody who is a party leader of political party Y. And that is extremely short term. It is simplistic, and it is very dangerous for our country. And you know, we have seen this before, even when you looked at those who opposed and, you know, and proposed the new constitution. You know, all these were based on who was for it and who was against it, which is really quite simplistic and very unfortunate for our country. Yeah.
IBC did announce that there will be the nominations. Excuse me. They announced in April the party nominations. They're expecting the party nominations in April. Will that really be the tiebreaker? Because there are a lot of people ascribing to a certain political formation, but they will not get a ticket. See? And we've seen it in 2017, talking about I was rigged out, I was told I was going to be given the ticket, now I'm going independent, or I'm going to another political formation. Are we likely to see the same? Like right now, as we speak, we have just two big major divisions as we talk.
The greatest challenge that might happen is that maybe the time frame, and I think that, you know, the bill was trying to avoid scenarios where people fail nominations in any political party and then go into be an independent candidate. So it might be quite a tricky balance for them. And you know, if you are going as an independent candidate, that is something that you should have made up your mind up front. And I think that is an extremely objective thing, because if I'm an independent candidate, it means that the formations that exist I don't believe in their ideologies. So that is something that should have been, it's something that you should have made up your mind from the onset, even, you know, way behind. It's not about, it was, and the whole concept of independent candidates, even in the advanced democracies like the US, it's not about that, you know, you failed as a Democrat and you can't be a Republican, so you go as an independent. No, it is because you don't believe in the ideals of being a Democrat.
Yes.
Neither do you believe in being in the ideals of a Republican. So you stand as an independent candidate because you have your own political ideals that you want to stand for. So that's something that should come from the fore, way forth, before even the nominations happen.
Alenga, do you think that curbing political hopping could be the game changer in formation of those political formations? Because as we speak, we are likely to see more formations as we gear up to the 2022 succession politics.
I think to a great extent it does, because you'll actually see how it happens with the previous setups. People were just basically running here and there. You know, you miss a nomination slot, you jump to the other side, you disagree with the party leader, you jump to another side. So at this point, we sort of will come to a place where you are in party X because you truly believe in the ideals of party X. If you miss the nomination for party X, then you're not going to jump to party Y, but you will stay there and wait for another time. So that way, it helps us have legitimate members of a party. And that is why the bill is introducing what it calls the corporate membership. That you can actually be a member of a party, even if you are in a coalition, you're still a member of your own party. You know, so it's not really just a matter of let's come together, because what it has come out to look like is let's come together to prevent so and so from also getting into power. So then when you get into power on that flimsy foundation, then you're given the country to lead. Then you start now figuring out, what do I do? You know, that is like you get into the same predicament that the first government after independence found itself in, because they were fighting for parochial interests, our land, our culture, our what. Then now you're given the whole country to lead. Then you start figuring out, what do I do with Marsabit? What do I do with Malava? You know, because your dream is not as big as it is. But if we come to that place where political parties are now ideology founded, then it gives you a commitment to that cause, to all through to the end. But what we are having is just a game, and that is why it eventually it leads us to a point where we have what I always call round pegs and square holes. I mean, it cannot work. So we actually need that kind of sanity to give us the best leaders, and that's what I was referring to, the model that we use to select our leaders. It's a model of just let's come together, let's pull so and so from Ukambani, let's pull so and so from Western, let's pull so and so from Coast. If we do so, then we will prevent so and so and so and so from getting into leadership. It has to be bigger than that.
Churchill, let's revisit voter registration exercise. IBC announced that this month they will be conducting that, and we saw voter apathy that we experienced in November. They didn't even hit 30% of the target that they had pegged on the voters to register. What is the game changer here? Because looking at undecided Kenyans, every time, even when opinion polls are held, it's a big number, and a lot of Kenyans still, as we speak, have not registered. What perhaps can IBC do? Because just opening a polling station and somebody staying there for the whole day and only to get 1 or 2 people, something needs to give so that we may enter the 2022 succession politics. We may go to our polls very well as a one cohesive Kenya and get the leaders that we want, as opposed to sitting back and saying,
I think that in this registration exercise, there would be need for a broader engagement beyond IBC.
Because actually some talked about voter education. A lot of people talked about the IBC didn't conduct voter civic education?
Well, the voter education, I mean, this is part and parcel of what they could be able to do. And not necessarily to get the 100%, but to get some other additional percentage. And I would look at it in terms of the, not really education, but the sensitization. That, you know, an election is coming, you need to elect your leader, you need a voting card. And the political leaders will also have to do some more work to use their political party structures to help in building, marshalling their support bases to register as voters. That is what I really expect. I expect them to really work extremely hard to mobilize grassroots members to get into to register as voters. And perhaps the engagement of other civil society actors like the churches and the mosques, you know, would also be something that would be good. Maybe, you know, they help in the mobilization of people to go out and vote, and maybe even having some of those centers being within the religious centers would be something that would help, because, you know, these are people who, you know, the religious leaders are people who Kenyans listen to. They, you know, they listen to them on almost everything apart from which political leader to elect. So at least,
and it's true actually, because we have even seen the party defections.
Yes.
Where somebody is not quite sure where to stand, and of course some of the parties like ANC has witnessed the same as well.
Yes.
Yeah. You think the party defections and alignments, OCA, they will decide, they have a meeting where they will sit down and talk about who will be our flag bearer. Do you think that will change the 2022 succession matrix? And the defections that we are witnessing? We had an MP yesterday talk about, now I'm crossing over to this side, and we are seeing them each and every day. And actually the campaigns are yet to be officially announced.
Yes. I think before I can comment about OCA, I would just want to slightly differ with Daktari on what he thinks about IEBC and how they can optimize on the number of new registrations and all that. I think, you see, IEBC's issue is really a matter of audit, because you need to arrive at a place where you can ask yourself, if we give this agency, let's say, about 10 billion, and then they register 26,000 people, you know, it's a question of audit. What did you really do with that 10 billion, you know? So they need to come back to the table and tell us, you know, this is, and then number two, I think it's not really about sensitization, because every person in the country knows that there's election registration. When the registration begins, everybody knows. They can even see IEBC people sitting somewhere on shops and whatever. They know that. But now the problem is the methodology, you know. If IEBC can work around a flexible way of registering voters, fresh voters, other than having somebody to look for where an IEBC agent is sitting, and then they can now be able to be registered there, I think they will be able to reap as many people. If this is the year 2022, and we have completely refused to embrace IECT, even in terms of registration, then where are we headed to? You look at when we had the BBI issue, signatures were gathered electronically, and the same signatures would be taken to IEBC and IEBC verified. So what stops IEBC from giving us a portal where you can actually enter and register yourself as a voter? Because primarily when you step out to vote on the voting day, then you will support yourself with physical documents that show you are actually that registered voter. I think we need to start thinking outside the box and stop using old maps to go to new lands, because that is how people were registered in 1965.
Yes.
That is how people were registered in 1992, in 83, in 97. So nothing is changing, but IEBC is sitting and waiting for different results. So that is what I think about optimizing on the fresh registrations. Then when you come back to One Kenya Alliance and whether they stand as a chance to change anything in the political situation, it is highly unlikely, because as we're looking at this race, it is each and every day it continues to shape itself as a two-horse race. And I think
Parliament has shown that.
Yes, indeed. And I think earlier in the day, the One Kenya Alliance felt, what I think, they felt like they might be able to bring a situation where no leader gets 50+1, and then now at that point they can now negotiate with the person who is having a lot of weight in that vote. And I think that was a wrong strategy, because you don't strategize to lose. You look at this situation where Raila Odinga is strategizing to win the election. Deputy President is strategizing to win the election, and then you decide, the four of you will strategize how to bring a runoff. It's not really gonna happen like that. But if you look at the political capital of those leaders that form One Kenya Alliance individually, Musalia Mudavadi has attempted to go to the ballot, and we know how many votes he got. There were less than 500,000. Even the whole of Western could not be galvanized behind him. Yes. So what magic is he going to perform in 2022? Kalonzo Musyoka tried the same year, and he got about 876,000 votes. Those are very negligible numbers that cannot really cause a difference in the election. If you look at Gideon Moi, he has never been on the presidential ballot, so we do not know how much he can get. If you look at Wetangula, he has never been on the presidential ballot, so we don't even know how much he can get. But if you look at the geopolitics, especially in the regions where these leaders come from, if you're looking at Gideon Moi and he's coming from Rift Valley, then you see the biggest chunk has already left the station with the Deputy President. So what much is he going to get from Rift Valley? If you go to Western Kenya, most of the governors in Western Kenya are ODM governors. If you go to Wetangula's home staff, it's really nothing much.
Interest of time, in 1 minute, I see we've seen Interior PS Karanja Kibicho there inspecting, leading other PSs in inspecting government projects, and we know very well a lot of government officials are plunging into politics, and some people are worried that that might affect government. Do you think, you're a governance expert, do you think that might affect Kenyatta's government before he leaves office?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, government is a system. And the exit of some of these top leaders will not necessarily bring the government into a halt. I mean, when this has happened before, and the government has a way in which they are able to have their systems continue. So we don't really expect that. And of course, immediately some of them resign, others will be nominated, and you and I could be nominated, you never know.
I'm looking forward to that prayer. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Churchill Saoke, Dr. Churchill Saoke, who is a governance expert and also a lecturer at the JKUAT. And we have Alenga Torosted, who is a political analyst and governance expert as well. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for, of course, we should do this again for your time. And thank you, the viewer. I see there are a lot of comments here, but allow me to skip them for now, as we have to give way for Kurunzi Mashinani. Anwangeshi is our sign language interpreter, and Lucy Maura was our earlier sign language interpreter. My name is Ben Troy. Enjoy. Do have yourself a blessed afternoon.